Good evening, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
The big stories tonight. It's all about impeachment complaints at the House today. Ouster charges against President Bongbong Marcos have been formally dismissed, while the lower chamber is just getting started on moves to unseat Vice President Sara Duterte.
Over at the Senate, the discourse is on Philippine and China relations, still against a backdrop of a long-standing territorial dispute. And senators, just like Manila and Beijing, are not seeing eye to eye on the matter.
And while Congress is busy with politics and geopolitics, probers and prosecutors are still piecing together evidence in the flood control scandal that up to now has not led to a single conviction.
Umaasa po ang Pangulo na kahit na po ang sinasabing impeachment ay isang political tool, ang mga miyembro po ng House of Representatives ay maaayon lamang kung anong ebidensya.
Walang kalakip na kahit anong ebidensyang magpapatunay sa mga paratang isang malinaw na indikasyon ng pampulitikang motibo sa likod ng kanilang mga hakbang.
Sigurado ako napapasa ito sa sufficiency in form and substance hanggang doon din sa pinakadulo ng proceedings.
A third impeachment complaint has been filed at the House of Representatives against Vice President Sara Duterte. It was lodged by a group which included religious personalities and lawyers and was endorsed by ML Party List Representative Laila De Lima. The complainants are represented by Amando Virgin Ligutan, the lawyer who also represented the third set of petitioners in the Duterte impeachment case in 2024. The complainants alleged the vice president committed, among others, culpable violation of the Constitution, betrayal of public trust, and graft and corruption. The articles of impeachment circled around Duterte's alleged misuse of more than 600 million pesos in confidential funds from the Office of the Vice President and the Education Department. It also included her supposed bribery of education officials, her assassination threat against the President and his family, and her alleged unexplained wealth.
We have statements of the personnel and staff of the Vice President herself from the OVP and DepEd making admissions under oaths. We have documents to prove that the Vice President violated her oath.
It's an improved version actually. Sigurado rin po ako, just like the second complaint, napapasa ito sa stage ng pag-determine ng sufficiency in form and substance and hanggang doon din sa pinakadulo ng proceedings sa House.
Ay, malamig. The OVP says the third impeachment complaint was expected. Duterte's defense spokesperson, attorney Michael Poa, said they continue to monitor developments on the complaints. Over the weekend, VP Duterte released a video statement criticizing the impeachment complaint filed by the group Akbayan. She also accused the group's most prominent leader in Congress, Senator Risa Ontiveros, of using the complaint to advance her political ambition.
Ang impeachment complaint na inendorso ng Akbayan ay isang papel na walang kalakip na kahit anong ebidensyang magpapatunay sa mga paratang na isinasaad dito. Walang kredibilidad ang Akbayan upang mag-endorso o magsumite ng impeachment complaint. Ilang ulit ng hayagang ipinahayag ng kanilang pinuno ang kanyang intensyong tumakbo sa pagkapangulo. Isang malinaw na indikasyon ng pampulitikang motibo sa likod ng kanilang mga hakbang.
Meanwhile, the House Committee on Justice has adopted its committee report dismissing the two impeachment complaints against President Bongbong Marcos for lack of substance. This report has been sent to the Committee on Rules, which will then send it to a vote in the plenary. Though unlikely, the impeachment complaints may be revived if 1/3 or more than 105 congressmen vote to reject the Committee on Justice's decision.
Ang anuman po mangyayari na solusyon, resolusyon, desisyon po ng House of Representatives ay hindi po ito saklaw ng Pangulo. Pero umaasa po ang Pangulo na kahit na po ang sinasabing impeachment ay isang political tool, umaasa po siya na ang mga miyembro po ng House of Representatives ay maaayon lamang kung anong ebidensya na naipakita at naging discussion sa Committee on Justice. At ang Pangulo po mismo, sa sarili niya, kumpiyansa siya na wala po siyang ginawang anumang impeachable offense.
From the House, let's move on to the Senate, where Senator Rodante Marcoleta is challenging Commodore J. Tarriela to a debate. Recall that the Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea invited the lawmaker to join patrol flights to the WPS and other maritime domains. The invitation follows Marcoleta's remark during a Commission on Appointments hearing last week that the Kalayaan Island Group should be surrendered since it is not within our exclusive economic zone or EEZ. Marcoleta later on clarified that he was taken out of context. However, he is standing pat on his dare to Tarriela.
Sabi niyo kay Commodore Tarriela, kasama si Justice Carpenter. And sino ba yung professor sa iyo?
Si Batong Bakal.
Para sa isang friendly debate. Bago pa yung pagpunta doon. Para sa ganun maayos natin. Para sa kapakanan ng ating.
In a statement, Tarriela says he is game for a discussion on less consequential matters such as food preferences and current fashion trends. But he insists the West Philippine Sea should never be a subject of public debate. Since domestic laws, the 2016 arbitral ruling, and even the Constitution have all ruled on the sovereignty and right of the Philippines over the territory. To end, Tarriela also invited the senator's son, Sagip Party List Representative Paulo Henry Marcoleta, to join a trip to the Kalayaan Island Group. The younger Marcoleta earlier said Tarriela and some, quote, arrogant senators should be at the forefront when China wages war against the Philippines.
Now moving on to other developments from the Senate, Senator Amy Marcos has denied being the mastermind of the alleged coup attempt against Senate President Tito Soto. In fact, she said she was the last to learn about it, something members of the minority can attest to. She believes the supposed ouster plot was the work of some senators who are worried about the upper chamber being rocked by controversies they are not responsible for. Last week, Soto claimed some minority senators offered the Senate presidency to Senator Loren Legarda, but she refused. Later, Soto revealed a plan to install Legarda as the first woman Senate president before her term ends in 2028. And speaking of 2028, the united opposition has confirmed it is gearing up for the elections while also working on strengthening its force. That's coming out of their much talked about lunch out last week, attended by key Liberal Party figures, including 2022 opposition standard bearer and now Naga City Mayor Leni Robredo. Now, is the former vice president leading the team again? Well, Senator Bam Aquino said he can't answer for Robredo at this point. In any case, Senator Risa Ontiveros said she is willing to become frontliner, but will take on any role the united opposition gives her.
I would be willing to take on any task na hiningi ng united opposition. Pasensya rin, pabalik-balik ako doon kasi yun yung, kumbaga, kondisyon ko sa kahit ano. Kung magkaisa kami sa usaping 2028, palagay ko yun yung magpapalakas ng tsansa namin. And kung sino ang buuin naming team or slate para doon, susuportahan ko yon.
Our first guest is not an elected official, but one senator made special mention of him today during the plenary session. Welcome again to the Big Story political pundit Ronald Llamas.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, Ces, Pauline, and Shawn. Long time no see.
Yes, good. Na-miss ka namin kanina.
You are updated ka naman sa kaganapan sa Senado.
Konti. Dahil nakarating ko lang eh.
So, you are in Japan, is that correct?
Yes.
All right.
Freezing.
Freezing. Okay, yeah. Well, Senator Cayetano disclosed that you are an opportunistang balimbing because your position on the West Philippine Sea, he claims, was very different from your position today. Did you ever change your stance?
Ang galing naman ng mga senador mo dyan, Ces. Masyado naman nila ako pinapasikat. No? Mukhang nakatingin sa salamin si Senator Ambassador of Jesus Christ Alan Peter nung sinabi niya yung pagiging oportunista at pagiging balimbing. No? I've never changed my position. At medyo natawa ako doon sa sinabi niya na I was trying to convince him doon sa posisyon ko para kumbinsihin si Pinoy na huwag magsampa ng kaso sa UNCLOS. Medyo nakakatawa yon. Dahil kung may kukunin ako na tao para kumbinsihin si Pinoy, baka hindi siya. Dahil siya yung bumalat kay Pinoy dati na si Pinoy daw ay abnoy. Publicly. Kaya hanggang pumalaw si Pinoy ay galit na galit sa kanya. Kaya dagdag pa dyan ay isa ako sa nag-lead nung case sa UNCLOS. At hindi ko alam kung nakita niyo yung pictures, ay nandun ako sa harapan. Dun sa victory lap.
Oo. We all know that. But he claims that you had arranged a meeting between him and the then Chinese ambassador?
Well, hindi ako nag-arrange para sa kanya. Ako, kausap ko talaga yung Chinese ambassador dahil kasama sa trabaho ko yon as political affairs. No? At hindi lang yung Chinese ambassador, na mismo yung foreign minister, si Wang Yi, na-meet ko yan. As well as yung defense ministers ng Vietnam, asking them how they deal with China. Because they've been at war for 1,000 years. So, bahagi ng trabaho ko yan. To meet ambassadors, actually hanggang ngayon, ginagawa ko yan, and to meet foreign ministers. No, lalong-lalo na dito sa usapin ng West Philippine Sea, no? Na nung panahon na 'yon ay nagsimula sa Scarborough. Pero ang hirap lang kasi pagkatiwalaan ni Senator Alan Peter dahil siya rin kasi yung nag-defend kay Digong sa United Nations na wala daw ni isa na pinatay extrajudicially nung panahon ni Digong. Siya rin yung nakipagdebate sa BBC, kung maaalala nyo, na lahat daw nung namatay during the Tokhang campaign ay lumaban. At siya rin yung nagpromisa sa lahat ng pamilya na bibigyan ng 10,000 pesos, etc. etc. Kaya kung ako sa inyo, hindi ako basta-basta maniniwala kung babalikan yung kanyang track record.
Well, except that he brought it up in plenary, so...
I was very surprised. No? Paano ako naging agenda sa isang Senate? Parang si Robin Hood Padilla, parang masyado ako pinapasikat. Anong tingin mo, Sean? Kailangan ko bang sagutin yung mga yan?
Hindi, ganito na lang. So once and for all, you're categorically denying that that conversation ever happened between you and then minority leader. Okay, so never...
So, yes, dahil halimbawa, na-picturean lang ako na bumibili ng DVD, nagsabit na kagad ako ng resignation kay Pinoy. Buti na lang, hindi tinanggap. Yan pang iba yung aking pananaw sa kanyang foreign policy. Hindi lang ako pare-resilient, sisipain ako niya sa Malacanang. Kaya mahirap na kontrahin mo yung posisyon o foreign policy ng presidente. Dahil nga, very fundamental yan. Very fundamental yan. At baka noong kasi, Secretary ng Foreign Affairs, si Alan Peter, naging Foreign Affairs Secretary. At very pro-China siya. Siguro, nung senador pa lang siya, ay very pro-China na siya. Dahil nung naging Secretary of Foreign Affairs siya, hindi lang siya pro-Tokhang, pro-China siya. Kaya I doubt kung it took somebody like me to convince him doon sa posisyon for foreign policy ng presidente, lalo na si President Pinoy.
Pero I don't think naman na he would make this up. Nagkaroon ba kayo ever ng conversations at that time bilang part siya ng Senate and part kayo ng cabinet? Did you ever have discussions on China or anything related to the arbitration?
Hindi naman siya kasama sa usapin sa arbitration. Hindi naman siya kasama sa Malacanang. Yan kasi pinag-usapan niya sa Malacanang eh. No? At halos wala namang debate dyan eh. From the very start, nag-unite naman yung Malacanang. Na hindi naman natin kayang tumahimik na lang dito sa aggression ng China. Hindi naman tayo pwedeng makipaggera sa China. Hindi naman tayo pwedeng lusubin yung kanilang napakalalaking artificial islands within our own EEZ. So nagdesisyon ang presidente together with yung core group niya sa cabinet na mag-file ng case sa UNCLOS. Wala akong alam na kumontra ron or even dared contradict the president. Kaya hindi ko alam kung saang multiverse nakuha ni Senator Alan Peter yung kanyang mga pinagsasabi.
Well, Sec Ronald, aside from calling you an opportunistang balimbing, marami pang sinabi ito si Senator Cayetano. He even engaged in a debate with Senator Kiko Pangilinan discussing nga itong mga pro and anti-China. And we're gonna play that bit for the benefit of our viewers.
Hindi mag-confront sa China.
Yes.
So I was minority leader noon. So by virtue of that, I was in the National Security Council. And Ronald Llamas were looking for anyone and everyone who would listen to him to talk to whoever to convince President Pinoy not to file the arbitral case, not to go and to have bilateral talks. So let me just mention, Mr. President, that what is seen in public, in Facebook, in vlogs, is very, very far from what is discussed in the halls of power and between professionals. I mean, here in Senate, we know where we disagree, we know where we will agree, diba? So for example, if you talk about divorce, we will know who is pro and anti. Can you be pro-Philippines without being anti-China?
It'll be difficult to be out and out pro-China, especially when it comes to policies.
Okay, so Sec Ronald, I know you already denied categorically having that a conversation with Senator Cayetano, but did you have differences with the late President Aquino when it came to this arbitration? Dun sa sinabi nga ni Sen Cayetano na naghahanap ka daw ng may magkakausap sa presidente to convince him not to pursue this.
Nope. United kami dyan sa arbitration na yan. At in a way, tama naman na hindi naman kami anti-China. We are not anti-Chinese people. We were anti the policy of the Communist Party of China in terms of building artificial islands within our EEZ. We were against the policy of the Communist Party of China in terms of taking over or trying to take control of the entire South China Sea, the most important waterway in the world, using the at the time 9-dash line. United kami ron. Wala akong alam na kung sino sa cabinet or sa gobyerno ni Pinoy na kontra ron, from the very start. Ngayon, whether nakikipag-usap ba kami, of course, si Xi Jinping pumunta pa rito noon sa APEC. Tapos yung ambassador nila ay kausap namin para ipaabot itong ating mga objections sa ginagawa nila sa ating sariling territory. Kaya yes, kinakausap ng Aquino government yung China. Because we are not against China. We are against the policies of the Communist Party of China.
Siguro, Ronald, to just give clarity to our viewers who might not have been so in tune with the news at that time, ano ba yung, very briefly lang, paano ba tayo napadpad sa arbitration? Like, talk us through ano yung discussions nyo sa palasyo when finally lahat kayo nag-agree na, sige, punta na tayo sa PCA.
Well, nung 2012 kasi, nagkaroon tayo ng standoff sa Scarborough, di ba? Nagalit yung China nung hinuli natin yung kanilang mga poachers. Yung mga nagnanakaw ng mga 150-year-old turtles, tortoises, at saka mga more than 200-year-old giant clams. Hinuli natin dahil kanyari, mga protected species yan . So nagalit yung China na hinuli natin. Nakausap namin sila, sabi namin, bakit galit na galit kayo? Mga poachers ito. Tsaka dati namin ginagawa ito. Ang sabi nung mga members ng Communist Party of China, hindi nyo na pwedeng gawin yan kahit ginagawa nyo dati. Dahil ngayon, superpower na kami. Very clear yung kanilang statement. So nagkaroon ng standoff, sinubukan nilang i-take over yung Scarborough, pinadala natin yung ating mga Navy doon, tapos nag-agree na mutually mag-withdraw para walang gulo. Tayo lang yung nag-withdraw doon sa Scarborough. And since then, nagbuo na sila ng artificial islands sa ating territories. Even to the extent of claiming na yung Palawan ay sa kanila daw. Kaya nagalit tayo at hindi na alam naman natin, hindi natin pwedeng awayin ang China militarily. They have the biggest navy in the world and the biggest standing army in the world. Maliban pa sa ating konstitusyon, we renounce war as an instrument of foreign policy. No? Pero pumunta tayo sa UNCLOS to invoke international law laban dito sa China. At nagulat nga yung mundo dahil tayo lang nangahas magsampa ng kaso sa China. Actually, sa UNCLOS, nandun ako 3 times, nandun yung other claimant states, Vietnam, Brunei, Malaysia, Indonesia, na nag-o-observe. No? Bilib na bilib sila, tuwan-tuwa sila. Dahil yung ating victory, fast forward, ay victory rin nila kahit hindi sila nagsampa ng kaso. Kaya ngayong taong ito, sineselebrate natin yung 10th anniversary ng ating victory sa UNCLOS against China, against their 9 dash line, against their claims laban sa ating West Philippine Sea. Kaya nakakapagtaka na itong mga senador na ito ay ngayon pa nagiging defender ng China. No? Na malinaw yung ating pagkakapanalo.
And siguro, explain mo na rin, Ronald, no? So after nung Scarborough standoff, lahat ba sa gabinete pro-arbitration? I mean, I'm assuming kasi sa normal meeting, iba-iba rin naman yung advice, di ba? Sa principal, sa boss. At that time, si President Pinoy, was the cabinet all in on the arbitration or were there dissenting voices at that time?
No, lahat united. May mga nuancing lang. Halimbawa, ano bang isasama doon sa kaso? Ano ba yung scope? Ano ba yung scope ng West Philippine Sea? No? Et cetera, et cetera. Pero yung kabuuan ay isang-ayon. At yung China ay member ng UNCLOS, unlike yung US. No? Unlike yung ibang bahagi, yung ibang bansa sa mundo na sinuportahan tayo. Yung membro pa ng UNCLOS ang hindi sumunod sa desisyon ng UNCLOS. Yung UNCLOS kasi, ito ang nagdedesisyon dito sa ganitong klase mga conflicts. Sa usapin ng dagat. Kaya United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, no? UNCLOS, na binuo yan ng United Nations. No? Kaya very, very important yan. Dahil yan yung nag-i-interpret o nag-i-implement ng international law sa usapin ng mga dagat. At miyembro dyan yung China. Dapat nga nag-abide sila. Actually, nung mga hearings diyan sa UNCLOS, isa sa pinaka-powerful na ginamit nating katibayan ay mismo yung mga mapa ng China. Pinakita natin na yung mga mapa ng China, no, kahit ng mga unang panahon pa, ay hindi kiniklaim yung South China Sea as theirs. As theirs. Kaya maganda yung yung trial na yon, yung hearing na yon, no? Ayun lang nga, nag-decision yung China na hindi dumalo dahil nga alam nila wala silang laban. Wala silang laban na i-claim yung buong South China Sea. Kaya kakampi natin yung buong mundo dyan dahil yung freedom of navigation na tinatawag natin. Hindi lang yan usapin ng ating claim sa West Philippine Sea. Usapin yan ng freedom of navigation in the most important waterway in the world. Kaya pag nakikita nyo yung mga statements ng mga bansa as far as Europe, as far as Australia, India, even Latin America, lahat sila ay suportado tayo. At ang nakakalungkot, mismo yung ating mga senador na binoto natin, ang hindi pa sumusuporta sa atin.
Ronald,
hindi daw malinaw yung mapa.
Oo.
Of course.
Ronald, the Foreign Affairs Secretary has written a letter to Senator Ontiveros na expressing some concern na lumiliit daw ang kanilang lugar lumiliit ang diplomatic space gawa ng itong iringan na ito. Again, how would you interpret that? Na parang we are speaking in discordant voices, no? When it comes to China.
Baka hindi naman, Ces, dahil siguro concern lang sila na mag-deteriorate yung mga debate dahil nga ay tayo ngayon ang chairman ng ASEAN. Diba? Tayo ang chairman this year at gusto yata ng presidente na imbitahin si Xi Jinping doon sa ASEAN Assembly para pag-usapan yung Code of Conduct na dati pa nating tinutulak. A Code of Conduct which will define how we relate to each other dito sa South China Sea. Ang nag-foot dragging dyan, yung China. At iniimbita natin sila to settle once and for all yung Code of Conduct na yan. Baka yun yung concern ng Department of Foreign Affairs. No? So, kunyari, cup half full, half empty. Some of us have to really defend itong aggression. Continuous. Yung iba sa atin have to make send feelers sa chat para imbitahin sila sa ASEAN. Kaya tingnan mo yun yung context. Ito pag-atras dun sa ating victory sa UNCLOS.
Although, Ronald, malabo naman talaga yung mangyari kaya pumunta siya dito o hindi naman talaga papayag ang China sa ganyang Code of Conduct.
Well, sinasabi nila ay sila in principle open doon, pero tuwing ma-agenda yan ay hindi naman sila sumasang-ayon. Pero in principle, sinasabi nila okay sila sa Code of Conduct.
For 20 years, hindi. Pero ito dagdagan ko lang yung sinabi ni Ces kasi bukod doon sa statement ni DFA Secretary Lazaro, nag-appoint rin sila ng spokesperson for their Maritime Affairs Division. I mean, that division has always existed pero ngayon lang tayo nagka-spokesman. What do you make of it? Adding another voice into...
Meron tayong spokesman sa National Maritime Council. Si Admiral... Ano ko yung pangalan
Iba
niya?
iba to Ronald, sa ano to mismo, sa DFA ito.
Iba yun yung DFA.
Oo.
Pero meron tayong spokesman para sa National Maritime Council ng Malacanang.
Oo, pero meron na rin tayong spokesman para sa DFA Maritime Affairs, parang department.
And
Ganon.
a former Naval and Coast Guard officer at that, in Deputy Assistant Secretary Rogelio Villanueva.
Okay.
So baka how would you interpret that? Parang
Basta isang voice lang.
parang may puntos ang China doon.
Mahirap kasi yung maraming spokesperson Diba? Dapat isa lang. Tapos malinaw, ano yung framework? Halimbawa, hindi ka pwedeng umatras sa ating victory sa UNCLOS. Hindi ka pwedeng umatras sa ating baseline law. Diba? Tungkol sa West Philippine Sea. Hindi ka pwedeng umatras sa position natin against their artificial islands. Pwede tayo makipag-chami-chami, no? Pero malinaw yung fundamentals natin. Kahit yung bago nilang elected or nominated na spokesperson has to abide with that. No? Hindi naman foreign affairs na nagde-define ng ating foreign policy. It's the president. No? In concurrence with other co-equal branches of government. So, yung Department of Foreign Affairs is the implementor ng ating foreign policy. Hindi naman silang gumagawa nun. Kaya kung sakaling, hindi ko pa naman nakikita na nangyayari, kung sakaling meron silang attempt na baguhin yung ating fundamentals, then they have to be called out. Dahil hindi sila ang nagde-define o nagde-desenyo ng ating foreign policy. Implementor lang sila.
All right, we thank you for talking to us. Political heckler and former political advisor to the late President Noynoy Aquino, Ronald Llamas.
We're just going to take a quick break, but coming up, the arraignment of former Senator Bong Revilla is not yet over, and what could be yet another long-drawn-out legal battle for him. That story and more when we return. Keep it here on One News.
You're watching The Big Story here on One News. The Philippines will continue to assert its sovereignty over the West Philippine Sea. This was the palace's reaction on the renewed debate over the disputed waters. It came to a point where Senator Rodante Marcoleta supposedly suggested the surrender of the Kalayaan Island Group in Palawan, claiming its features are way beyond the country's exclusive economic zone. Marcoleta has since drew flack for the statement. Kalayaan is the country's only municipality located in the WPS. Its center on Pag-asa Island hosts the country's largest and most developed stronghold in the disputed waters. As such, Palace Press Officer Undersecretary Claire Castro said the administration remains committed to its long-standing policy of defending the country's territory. The palace also underscored the need for consistency and responsibility public statements on the West Philippine Sea.
Ang nais din po ng Pangulo, maipahatid ninuman ng bawat Pilipino kung ano ba ang ating karapatan sa ating teritoryo, kung ano ba ang interest natin sa West Philippine Sea. Ganun pa rin po ang posisyon ng Pangulo. Wala pong anumang bahagi ng teritoryo natin o anumang interes ang iso-surrender sa anumang foreign power. Pero dapat din po tayo maging tugma sa ating ipinapahayag. May kasabihan nga tayo, ang magtanim ng hangin, bagyo ang aanihin.
Let's discuss this further with our guest tonight, Dr. Jeffrey Ordan, President and CEO of the WPS Foundation. Dr. Ordan is also the co-chair of the Philippine Committee Council for Security Cooperation in the Asia Pacific. Welcome to the Big Story.
Good evening.
Good evening. Are you disappointed in the DFA's response, particularly in the written in a letter to Senator Risa Ontiveros, claiming that this word war is reducing their diplomatic space to maneuver with China?
Yes. So I have written that op-ed on the Inquirer, and the DFA's response to all of these is really disappointing because of three things. Number one, false equivalence. It's as if two sides were equally wrong, which is not the case. The DFA did not even call out the Chinese embassy for asking our official to be reprimanded. That is not normal for a foreign mission to ask the host government to reprimand its official. Also, by the way, Ms. Ces, if the Chinese are really concerned about the honor and dignity of their head of state, may I remind you of what China's Consul General in Osaka posted on social media, I think 2 months ago. He practically threatened to behead Japan's prime minister because the prime minister, in a parliamentary debate, mentioned about Japan's potential involvement in a Taiwan contingency. And so that is not new, right? In 2024, that also happened. But those diplomats who said those things on social media were not reprimanded. And so, there's a double standard here. So that's one. Number two, look at the asymmetry. Beijing summoned our ambassador to protest Commodore J. Tarriela's remarks. Our DFA simply made firm representations. When you summon an ambassador, that's higher than a diplomatic protest. But when you send just a mere firm representation, in other countries, that is lower than a diplomatic protest. So the question should be asked, did we even file a diplomatic protest? Is that firm representation tantamount to a diplomatic protest for the DFA? And number three, lastly, I think the DFA is really, probably because of its leadership, I haven't seen any indication that it's learning from history. Right? It still defaults to the old-fashioned diplomacy when it comes to China, when history shows that it does not work.
May I call you Jeffrey?
Yes,
okay.
Please.
Jeffrey, I asked the very same question of Ronald Llamas earlier, and he said that we should not put too much weight on what the Foreign Secretary said. It is perhaps because they're dealing with China in a different arena, while, the debate in the Senate is a different arena.
Precisely. We are dealing with China. We are not dealing with a normal country, say
with
Vietnam.
With a normal country. What
right?
do you mean?
I mean, we are dealing with a country with a history of showing bad faith in negotiations. So, if you look at history, right, in the article I mentioned, JMSU and the Scarborough Shoal, for example, I think Ronald Llamas also mentioned about how we were tricked to pull out our vessel and China did not pull out. That's just one instance. But way back in 1995, we were tricked that those structures that China were building on Mischief Reef were just shelters for their fishermen. That's one. Number two, we asked, in 1999, they built more structures on top of it. We protested. We talked to them bilaterally. No transparency policy then. Closed door meetings. They issued a joint statement. What did China say? those facilities will remain for civilian purposes. So we know now that those were lies. In the JMSU, or the Joint Marine Seismic Undertaking that I mentioned in the Inquirer article, they tricked us there as well. So we allowed them to survey Philippine EEZ with the understanding that they would share the data with us. They did not share data with us. They shared partial data, but during the Senate hearing in 2008, our own officials admitted that China did not fully share those data with the Philippines.
So we
long
should-
history.
We should
Yes.
no longer have any hope that when we host the ASEAN summit here, that China would relent on a code of conduct to guide all of the claimant countries.
Yes. So I think two things. Number one, it's possible to have a code of conduct, but it's going to be so watered down that it would have zero effect, zero impact whatsoever on the situation in the West Philippine Sea or the South China Sea. And that is only if we allow them to actually water it down. Now, if we don't allow the Chinese to water it down, there would be no COC.
Okay, well, I also asked this question of Ronald Llamas earlier, and I'm going to ask it to you. On top of that statement that the DFA released, they also appointed a spokesperson, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, for the very first time for their Maritime Affairs Division. He was a former member of the Coast Guard as well. Were you surprised by that, adding another voice to the chorus, or is it all in line with what you said in your article?
I don't see any problem with that, because in fact it's perfectly fine to have multiple spokespersons on the West Philippine Sea for as long as everyone is speaking with the same voice, right? When it comes to the South China Sea, our claim in the West Philippine Sea. But when I listened to I don't know, was that a press conference? There was no indication that they're changing their approach. In other words, I do not see them supporting the transparency policy, right? I think that's my biggest argument in my article, is that they see the transparency policy of the Marcos administration, of the government, as counterproductive or as an irritant to what they're doing. And I think that is a misguided approach, because transparency should be seen as a complement to diplomacy to make sure that their diplomacy is grounded on facts, on data, on China's record, and they no longer just take China's words at face value.
That's why. So what I'm hearing from you, Dr. Jeff, is the DFA is putting their own spokesperson, perhaps to counterbalance the other spokespersons that we have. And we have a lot, right? We have, of course, spokesman for the West Philippine Sea of the PCG, Tarriela. There was also a National Maritime Council. There was a national task force at some point. But don't you think that having too many voices kind of muddles the discussion when we're against China, whose policy has been super consistent for decades now?
That's why they should talk to each other. I'm not sure if there's an outreach from the DFA to Commodore Tarriela and to our AFP spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea. But I don't agree with the notion that they are trying to compete with Commodore J, because I don't think they can compete with Commodore J Tarriela, because first of all, those photos that are being released by the Philippine Coast Guard, those are primary source document, right? Unless, I don't know if they're humble enough to actually request these data from Commodore J. But I think, yes, go ahead, please.
So the task, I suppose, is for the president to get all his people together and to agree on how to approach this matter, to speak in one voice.
Perhaps so, but I think there has to be a change of mindset from the foreign affairs to not view the transparency as counterproductive to diplomacy. I haven't heard the new spokesperson from the DFA saying that they support the transparency approach. I heard they keep on saying that the DFA is the authoritative voice when it comes to the West Philippine Sea issue. So I just read that, or I interpret that as a reinforced a reinforcement of, I don't know, their authority or their power, but I don't see any actual embrace of the transparency policy.
Well, so you have the DFA saying also that disputes are better handled quietly through diplomacy, and you do want to see the Foreign Affairs Department supporting transparency efforts. But the question is, Dr. Jeff, can transparency and quiet diplomacy coexist?
Absolutely, right? So they can do diplomacy as as diplomats, but at the same time allow the transparency policy to actually shape public narratives and policy discourse, right? Because if you do not allow transparency, there will be, or the Chinese will be successful in its malign influence operations in the country. And that is not just a malign influence operation within the country, but that can influence public policy in the long run. There will be more people, like some senators, who would argue, intentionally or not, in favor of the Chinese position.
This transparency initiative is a hallmark of the BBM administration. So what would you say is the biggest achievement of this initiative?
I think one of the biggest initiatives is countering malign influence operation within the country. So if you notice, last year there was a survey conducted by Pulse Asia asking if they support the transparency initiative. It was 94%. There was another survey that asked about their awareness of the West Philippine Sea issue, and that showed significant number. I can't recall on top of my head what was that, but it was a majority of Filipinos expressing or essentially saying that they have awareness or high awareness of the dispute. And that's important because we do not want gaslighting by the Chinese embassy or the Chinese foreign ministry to work, right? So we need to make sure that our people are aware of the issues of our interests and the basis of our interests.
Okay, not to belabor this, but you already mentioned that Ces asked you, shouldn't it be the president, no? Siya dapat yung bastonero, siya nagkukumpas ng foreign policy natin and our stance. So, having said that, do you think having these different voices is kind of a play of how BBM and his administration want to come off, which is may ganito, may ganyan, we have the diplomatic thing moving, but we also have the transparency initiative moving, and that's actually the strategy here, as opposed to some views that there is no strategy, or kalat-kalat yung strategy.
Kalat. Oops.
Yeah,
I don't want to answer for you.
Go ahead, Doc.
I don't know if there's a strategy, but what I know is the transparency policy is working, and that is something that the government should capitalize on.
All right, we thank you for your time. Dr. Jeffrey Ordan, President and CEO of the WPS Foundation.
And now we turn to other stories making headlines at the start of the week. First, the Sandigan Bayan has again postponed the arraignment of former Senator Bong Revilla and former DPWH 1st District Engineering Office Finance Section Chief Juanito Mendoza. That's over the alleged 92.8 million peso ghost flood control project in Bulacan. The anti-graft court deferred the proceedings after both accused filed motions questioning the malversation charge. Their arraignment has been reset to February 16 at 8:30 in the morning.
In another development, a recent Okta survey found that 55% of Filipinos trust the national government to address national problems. However, 61% said that elected officials do not value their views, while only 31% feel heard by Congress and local governments. The poll was conducted from December 3 to 11, 2025 among 1,200 Filipino adults with plus or minus 3% margin of error. And President Bongbong Marcos will travel to New York, the United States, for a working visit from March 8 to 11. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said Marcos will attend the opening of the 70th session of the Commission on the Status of Women. He will also deliver a message at the special session of the United Nations General Assembly and meet with several UN officials.
And finally, Pasig City Mayor Vico Soto has renewed calls for the passage of an anti-political dynasty law as Senate hearings opened on proposed measures. Soto said the debate should go beyond personalities and focus on the broader issue of how political power is exercised. Speaking before the committee, the mayor stressed what he believes is at the heart of the issue.
Hindi po ito tungkol sa kahit sinong individual o spesipikong pamilya. What we are against here is the concentration of power in the hands of a few political elite. Ang nilalabanan at inaayawan po natin dito ay ang paggamit ng resources ng taong bayan, the use of state resources, the use of taxpayers' money to perpetuate themselves in power.
We're pausing for another breather, but
The big story is back with the Justice Department clarifying who is and who is not facing charges in the ongoing flood control probe. DOJ spokesperson attorney Polo Martinez told her sister program Storycon that entrepreneur Jonathan So is a respondent in one case already submitted for resolution. The case involves alleged flood control anomalies linked to contractors Wow Construction and top-notch Catalyst Builders with charges including malversation and falsification. Martinez also clarified that no complaint has been filed against So's business partner, Carlito Macadangdang, at least for now.
Jonathan So is a respondent in one of the cases pending before the DOJ. He's a respondent in one of the flood control cases concerning either of two contractors, that's Wow Construction or top-notch Catalyst Builders. The charges are, well, there are many. The primary charge, so to speak, would be malversation through falsification by a public officer. As for the other individual related to Mr. So, Carlos Macadangdang, he is, well, currently there is no complaint lodged against him in the DOJ. No complaint where he is made a respondent. So as regards to him, his participation, insofar as the DOJ is concerned, well, is currently out of the records, out of our competence to comment on, at least for now. No?
In the same interview, Martinez also explained how the DOJ coordinates with the Office of the Ombudsman in prosecuting flood control cases. He said an existing agreement governs jurisdiction, particularly when public officials with salary grade 27 and above are involved.
Irrespective of who is the sitting ombudsman naman po, there is an existing memorandum of agreement between the DOJ and the ombudsman with respect to cases related to flood control. We actually conducted the investigation because of the deputization by the ombudsman for the DOJ. So yung mga kaso po actually imbestigahan namin ngayon. These were started by the NBI DOJ Task Force on Flood Control Anomalies. Then they were referred to the Ombudsman for their own investigation, referred back to us for the conduct of our preliminary investigation. Tapos binalik po ulit sa kanila for their own assessment of whether or not they should be filed with the Sandigan Bayan.
Meanwhile, the DOJ confirmed multiple cases are moving forward against sitting senators linked to the same batch of flood control projects. These include 3 cases involving Senator Joel Villanueva, while a separate plunder case against Senator Jinggoy Estrada is now under preliminary investigation. The DOJ said senators can be arrested despite their parliamentary immunity if their cases carry prison time of more than 6 years.
So there are 3 cases wherein Senator Joel Villanueva is involved. And these 3 cases are part of the same batch of cases involving, like I said earlier, either of 2 contractors, Wow Construction or top-notch Catalyst Builders. So ano po yan? And these are 6 cases in total. We know that Senator Jinggoy Estrada has a pending case with the DOJ, the charge being for plunder. That's the main charge. Of course, again, I like to reiterate na iba-iba yung timeline for these cases. They were not all filed simultaneously. Each case has its own pending incidents. It's hard to say because there are just a number of cases and the number of motions that they could be filing with respect to the particular case that they're involved in. It's really a lot. Kaya, but that's correct to say that they're all moving.
All right, and now on a much lighter note, in sports, we are celebrating our Pinoy athletes. And first is EJ Obiena, who is kicking off his European campaign with a bang as he bags bronze in the Init indoor meeting Karlsruhe in Germany. Obiena cleared 5.70 meters for podium finish with Norwegian Sondre Guttormsen and American Cole Walsh bagging gold and silver respectively. It was a fitting follow-up for Obiena from his first ever gold medal finish at the 12th Asian Indoor Athletics Championships in China. Now, meantime, Pinay tennis superstar Alex Ayala achieves a new record as her ranking climbs to number 40 in the WTA singles standings. And this milestone is on the heels of a stellar performance at the Abu Dhabi Open, where she reached the singles quarterfinals and the doubles semifinals.
All right, and before we go, Netflix is going all in on Pinoy originals. From unlikely pairings to major throwbacks, a new slate of original Filipino projects is set to stream worldwide in 2026. News 5's MJ Marfori tells us more.
Unlikely pairings, major throwbacks, and a cast and production that's powerhouse. These are just some of the original Filipino projects making up Netflix's power-packed lineup, set to reach more than 325 million subscribers worldwide. From action to comedy, drama, romance, and a whole lot of nostalgia. This all-Pinoy slate is fully loaded, proudly Filipino, and ready for a global audience. One of the biggest crowd pleasers, the announcement of a TGIS reunion in the anthology series Paskong Pinoy. Finally, the secret is out. After weeks of viral videos showing them together, Bobby Andrews, Angelo De Leon, and Manila's finest star Rica Peralejo and the TGIS gang are officially returning to the small screen.
Personally, I've been away from TV and movies for like more than a decade.
Welcome back.
Thank you. And the very first thing that came to me after those years was actually this project. When Direct told me that he had the plan of doing this with Netflix, I said, of course, I would like to do it because I would be reunited with people I've known for like all my life. I've known them when I was just like 14 years old, and I am now 24. But yes, that's a very big part of why I said yes, and also just to be part of Netflix.
7 world-class titles were the first to be announced for the platform, leading the list. The 18th Rose, starring Cyril Manabat and Kylie Chari, followed by Ganito, Ganyan Ganoon, featuring Jody Santamaria and Agot Isidro. Agot also stars in Balaraw, alongside Janine Gutierrez and Charlie Dizon, a project that puts the spotlight on Filipino folklore, directed by Ray Red. Headlining the lineup, by Bust the Undesirables, the series, starring Ann Curtis and Gerald Anderson, directed by Eric Mati. This time, the series highlights Filipino martial arts, adding another layer to its hard-hitting storytelling. Originally slated for 8 episodes, Netflix decided to add 1 more. Now, that's a flex.
When we loosened it up a bit by adding 1 more episode into the story, it became a lot more experiential.
This is a big moment for Filipino entertainment, bringing together an unprecedented number of original Filipino titles, showing different genres and introducing Pinoy stories to a truly global stage. And this is just the beginning. More local titles are set to be announced by Netflix soon, all happening in 2026. MJ Marfori, we are One News.
Wow, so much nostalgia.
I know,
For you.
throwback for me. I know. Me and Andre was over there.
Tabing ilog.
Tabing ilog?
Diba?
Tabing ilog, mas bago pa yon.
Oo, mas ano pa yon.
Mas later
Hindi
generation.
na yung nostalgia.
Pero naabutan ko rin. So alam niyo rin gano'ng katanda.
Okay, and on that note, that's it for the Big Story this Monday. Thank you so much for watching.
We are back here tomorrow at 8 p.m. We'll see you then.
Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time. Have a good night.